Uh, Good evening, everybody. That's for those that are joining us in the UK, and welcome to people that are joining from around the globe. This is a great event organised by the TUC around organising in Amazon. G&B Union is a proud affiliate of the TUC and has been involved in many things. Just some issues just to go through in terms of just explaining some simple things to assist people that have joined us. So for people that require translation from Spanish, you can press the select on the screen, and you can receive the translation there. Please don't worry if it doesn't kick in for a few seconds. There is sometimes a slight delay on it, but it should work pretty well from everybody. And we will obviously be posting the code of conduct for people that are asking questions and things like that and sending messages. That will be in the chat and potentially, I think, in the Q&A section. And what we're going to ask people is, because it's very easy to use the chat section, well, sometimes we just get inundated with lots of messages in the chat section. So we're going to ask people, if you want to ask a question, and we want people to ask questions, please post them in the Q&A segment, and that means that we can try and answer as many questions as possible. And if there are similar questions, we'll ask the panelists to do that in a group way. So G&B, my union, has been organising now in the UK in Amazon for a few years. We've organised a whole series of activities, ranging from events on Black Friday, pickets and demonstrations outside Amazon fulfillment centres, to Prime Day organising activities right across the UK regions, and indeed outside Amazon's head offices. And we've been pleased that the TUC and other affiliates to the TUC have also joined us on those activities, ensuring that the good watchwords of the trade union movement, solidarity, assisting us in those organising activities. G&B was one of the founders of the Uni Global Amazon Alliance, where a few years ago, Teamsters, the CGIL from Italy, COCO in Spain, and Solidarnos, where along with Verdi, the German union, where we met and decided to try and organise on a global scale within Amazon. Amazon is a global company. There are no such things as just local responses to a global company. We have to organise on a global level, and the Uni Global Amazon Alliance now has grown to such an extent. There are over 23 unions from quite a far-reaching number of countries, and more countries are joining these activities. And we've had a number of really good positive events in the last few years, building those alliances, hearing stories from Amazon workers, and very similarly, the treatment of Amazon towards workers is not just confined to bad practices in the UK or the US. There are lots of bad practices and unsafe practices that they have exported across the globe. So it's really pleasing to see the level of activity and organising that is now taking place, not just in the UK, but across the globe as well. Amazon make it extremely difficult for a trade union to organise. They take our leaflets, the security take away, the calling cards that we use. We are issued with legal notices time upon time, trying to disrupt our organising activities, and usually those legal notices are issued with numerous threats to try and not just frustrate our activities, but also organising. If anybody has seen an Amazon site, you will see the 16-foot high walls with the wire and the and the bars and the huge security gates that people have. Very intimidating places to try and organise, and usually in most of these sites are purposely built and designed where there are no communities living nearby. So travel to these sites is a must. We've also teamed up with numerous partners, NGO organisations such as War and One, and a number of other really good organisations that have been really helpful in promoting what we're trying to do. So yes, we've been collaborating on many things with the TUC in trying to organise our members in Amazon, and there's quite a number of issues that we will be also jointly dealing with over the coming months. So more on that another time. You know, Amazon in relation to safety, you will potentially have seen a number of reports that we have published through freedom of information exercises on the amount of ambulances that are sent to Amazon sites to pick up the numerous people that are sick or injured in their working day. So much so that it's become epidemic proportions, the amount of injuries and the amount of ambulances that are sent to sites for people that have had strokes, people being involved in collisions, people being involved in explosions, respiratory problems, broken limbs, you name it. Lots of things that have taken place in these sites. And Amazon generally say that actually they're one of the safest industries in the country. And we've done comparable examples with other similar types of employers in the sector. And Amazon stands out amongst all those employers as having some of the worst unsafe practices that are taking place. And this was further mentioned recently. If you look at Amazon's approach to COVID, it wasn't just relating to this country, but globally as well, that they tried to pretend at first that it didn't affect them. And we got numerous photographs, videos, where social distancing was not taking place, PPE was not taking place, crowded corridors, the pick rates and the productivity still taking place at pace, and lots of unsafe activities. It was by the collation of that evidence and the threat of publishing it and taking it to the health and safety executive that actually in the end we forced Amazon to actually put in place these measures. I will also add one other thing. If the workforce in France hadn't also taken action to close down one or two of the Amazon sites there, then they would have tried to take no notice in this country as well. It was the threat of that closure and the loss to revenues that actually started to make Amazon sit up and take notice. So you've got Amazon that's now become a retailer, a grocer, a merchandiser, a tech giant, and a services provider, bookshop retailer, the seller of magazines, the maker of movies and things like that. You know, one has to ask, how does this big conglomerate actually really then start to take notice of what the real world of work should look like? And post-COVID, some important questions to be answered about what does a post-COVID world look like. Exploitation and the dehumanization of work, we all know, cannot exist in these areas. And, you know, and I think there needs to be a real start now looking at Amazon with all its operations and all its services that it's providing. Has Amazon got too big? Has it become too large? Can it be regulated in a fair sense? Or actually, in some senses, should it be we look at starting to break it up because of its anti-competitive activities? So there is lots of things that I think we're going to talk about today, and numerous issues that hopefully will get the questions flowing in. We've got a great panel of speakers, and I'll introduce them, and hopefully they'll introduce themselves here in a few seconds. But I'm really pleased that our first panelist, who's going to say a few words, Leanna Dalston from the Teamsters, a union that we've been collaborating with on Amazon for a couple of years now. So, Leanna, I'm really pleased you can join us, and look forward to hearing what you've now got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's an honor to join this with you, brothers and sisters, and talk about this really important topic. You know, I think as Mick already addressed, like, Amazon is definitely something that's impacting the entire labor movement, and that we need to take very seriously. It sort of epitomizes what's all the flaws in the current economic system of racialized capitalism. And I think, you know, it continues to grow at an unprecedented rate. Just since the onset of the pandemic, the net worth of the company has skyrocketed to over $1.5 trillion. And that's obviously on the backs of all these workers who are getting sick and in some cases dying from this. And so I just wanted to talk briefly about sort of how it impacts our union and some of the organizing strategies that we're looking at in terms of taking on big transnational corporations like Amazon. So, you know, first, as Mick already said, like, with its monopoly power, Amazon is fundamentally changing the nature of work in the US and globally, and it has a huge impact on many industries and on our members in many ways. So there's like sort of this Amazon effect that impacts last mile package delivery, warehousing, even public sector workers, right? As Amazon's get all these tax subsidies and not paying taxes themselves. And so one of the things I wanted to highlight is that in the US, we're seeing this rapid expansion of Amazon's own last mile network. And so in the beginning, even just 3 years ago, all the packages used to go out through either UPS, the Postal Service, or FedEx, or a couple of small couriers. But now by the end of 2019, as Amazon's building out all these delivery stations and subcontracted last mile drivers, almost every place in the US with a population density of greater than 1,000 people per square mile is within 45-minute drive of an Amazon delivery station, meaning that Amazon can effectively reach and deliver packages to over 60% of the US population. So what does that mean, for example, for union members in the Teamsters or in the postal workers or whatever? It means Sunday delivery. It means that this company's having a disproportionate impact on like the entire package delivery industry. Also wanted to highlight, as Mick said, about the lack of safety. So it's also having an impact on warehouse due to unrealistic quotas and the grueling work environment and stressful working conditions. Amazon warehouse workers were hurt on the job at a rate more than twice the industry average last year in some of the studies we did in the US. And also just wanted to talk about, because I think this is important as we talk about the strategies, it also has an impact on our members in the communities where they live and work as well. So especially in communities of color, environmental justice, most impacted communities. Amazon's developing surveillance technology, both in the workplace and at the community level. They have, in the US, they have extensive contracts selling data to police departments. They are developing facial recognition software that's racially biased and disproportionately misidentifies women and people of color. And so there's a huge impact on our members, not just in the workplace, not just in almost every industry that we represent, but also in the community. And so the Teamsters have been supporting workers to organize with many multinational companies in the logistics industry for a long time now. And obviously, similar to the UK, I think there's a lot of limitations to US labor law and a lot of things that hold workers back in terms of lack of enforcement, lack of timely enforcement, and just unfavorable legal structures to workers. So for example, like in a big freight company, XPO, that we've organized, workers have successfully won the union, but they can't win a first contract. And so in thinking about how do we take on these big transnational corporations, one of the things we want to think about is like, look, we don't think we can just win anymore. Obviously, the shop floor power is the key to everything in an organizing drive, but if we just have shop floor power in one location through a traditional sort of NLRB process, like that isn't going to be sufficient to have enough power for workers to win against Amazon. So we have a couple of ideas that I just wanted to share in terms of lessons learned in building power against these big transnational corporations. So I think it's about building power for the long term. It's not going to be a quick campaign. We have to think about how are we building sustainable networks, long-term coalitions, something that can be built and constantly growing over time. We need to deeply engage our existing members on the importance of new organizing and also wield the full strength of our membership to support non-union workers. So it's not just about fighting for the interests of our members, but fighting for the interests of the entire working class as a whole. And we have to engage in whole worker organizing that looks at members in the workplace and also in the community and builds real power around issues that matter inside the workplace and in the community. So an example of this is in Southern California, we've been working, Amazon's expanding an airport and it's having a disproportionate impact on community there. And so we've been part of a broad coalition of Amazon workers and environmental activists and immigrant rights activists and community members to fight for a community benefits agreement there, and it intersects with organizing as well. So just wanting, I think that's another key part of the strategy. And then we also have to center racial justice, because I believe to successfully build power against multinational capital like Amazon, we have to address the systemic racism that they profit from and that they continue to perpetuate. We also have to have a market-wide approach. Like I said, not just looking at one facility, but looking in a geography. What's their entire footprint? How does it work? How can we build solidarity amongst workers across multiple facilities in a geography? And then, as Mick already alluded to, the importance of international solidarity. We have to start from strong local coalitions and then build all that out globally on a large scale. So I think ultimately, we must remember that it's hundreds of thousands of Amazon workers and contractors who make Amazon run and who made Jeff Bezos his billions. And so even though it seems like a daunting task, if we do the hard work and really engage people and build power, that's ultimately how we're going to win. So I just wanted to thanks. That's an initial presentation, and I look forward to participating in this panel.
Absolutely brilliant, Leanna, and I think you've raised a number of very important issues there that hopefully we're going to get a number of questions on. Our next panelist is Eliza Pan, who is a tech worker activist and absolutely was one of the leaders in Amazon employees around the climate justice, and filed one of the first shareholder resolutions on climate justice. And I've listened to Eliza a couple of times in her presentations in the last year or so, and she certainly had a major impression and influence on me, and I'm really looking forward to what you've got to say, because I am sure you could have a great impression on others as well. Over to you, Eliza.
Thank you, Mick, for that really kind introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Eliza. I'm currently based in Seattle. I worked at Amazon for 6 years in the corporate offices, but I grew up in Southern California, in actually the community that Liana just referenced, where Amazon has built one of its largest logistics hubs. So, I grew up with warehouses 2 streets down from my house. And growing up, there, I never really thought anything of it. I thought that was normal. I thought everywhere had warehouses everywhere. My dad and my brother both worked in a warehouse, not in an Amazon warehouse, but other warehouses in the region. So I never thought anything of it. And when I left and came to Seattle, I realized, oh, it's actually not normal to not be able to see 2 miles down the street because there's so much smog. When I left, I realized that it's not normal to have large, heavy-duty diesel trucks barreling down your street every hour. Groups in Southern California have done counts, and in some cities, towns next to where I live, there are upwards of 20,000 heavy-duty diesel trucks going down one neighborhood street every single day. And so, as you can imagine, that results in a lot of pollution. And that was what really drove me personally to get involved with organizing at Amazon. I felt that I was contributing as a corporate tech worker, contributing to the pollution that was really impacting and harming communities, especially communities of color. We've done a bit of research about where Amazon locates its warehouses, and the majority are in communities of color. And this results obviously in negative health impacts. My brother grew up with asthma. My dad has severe allergies. I know many people I grew up with have respiratory issues. And as you can imagine, in this time of COVID-19, that's only exacerbated the dangers that communities of color face during this pandemic, not only from the pollution that Amazon causes, but also from the workplaces. Amazon has, since the beginning of the pandemic, really been resisting workers' calls for better protections from COVID-19 in the warehouses. So all of these issues are connected. I'm part of the group called Amazon Employees for Climate Justice. We started organizing around this issue of climate justice. When we first started organizing about 1.5 years ago, we had a meeting with Amazon leadership, and a couple of meetings actually. And I remember in those meetings, Amazon leadership was very dismissive of us. I mean, first of all, the fact that we even got a meeting, that I think that speaks to the privilege that tech workers do have. But even though we got that meeting, got those meetings, senior leadership was very dismissive, really wanted to just kind of placate us and make us go away. I remember asking in those meetings, you know, at that point, Amazon had not released its carbon footprint, something that hundreds and thousands of other companies have already done for years. Amazon had not made any commitments to reduce its emissions publicly, something that thousands of companies have done. And I remember when asking, you know, when was Amazon going to do this? They said that they had no plans to do so. And so we began organizing, you know, classic organizing tactics with petitions, with, and it really culminated in a big walkout last fall. And literally 24 hours before the walkout, Amazon announced its climate pledge. That was the first ever commitment to reduce emissions. But of course, they announced it 24 hours before to try to placate us. We were out in the streets anyway because there was a huge gap in Amazon's concession to us, which was racial justice. The climate pledge was largely about you know, donating money and commitment to invest in renewables. But what we know is that Amazon's pollution largely comes in these long haul, heavy duty trucks, and also planes, expansion of Amazon Air, and all that. And that expansion is largely, again, in communities of color. And so this is just another, this is just yet another example of Amazon's huge blind spot when it comes to racial justice. When the coronavirus really hit the warehouses, Amazon and workers started pushing back. Of course, Amazon pushed back. And I don't think it's a surprise that the majority of the worker organizers that Amazon has retaliated against are workers of color. Many are women of color. And I'm sure, you know, some of you saw the comments that a senior leader made in a senior leadership meeting, calling Chris Smalls, who is a Black warehouse worker organizer, not smart or articulate, clear racist dog whistling. And this this is yet another example. In Seattle, there, as you know, Amazon owns Whole Foods, and there are Whole Foods workers who who were wearing face masks that said Black Lives Matter, and Amazon leadership, Amazon management in Whole Foods told them that they could not do that, all while Amazon putting out statements about how they support the Black community. And so what we're going to continue to see is Amazon make really pretty statements. I'm sure you also saw the announcement about the Climate Pledge Arena that Amazon has invested in Seattle. We have to hold Amazon accountable to taking real action instead of really nice PR statements that are greenwashing and hiding the real truth, which is that there is a systemic issue of racist thinking at the company that manifests in its approach to the climate crisis, in its approach to warehouses. It's not a surprise, you know, that warehouses, the workforce are largely workers of color, and yet management are not. And so we see this running through the company in its approach to all sorts of issues. And if we want to live in a world where we have worker justice, we have climate justice, we have racial justice, we need to make sure that we understand who are the workers and how is Amazon treating the majority of its workers who are workers of color. So I don't want to go too long here. I'll stop here for now, but I think the last thing I'll end on is just what do we need to do? We have definitely seen in Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, the Amazon response when workers take actions that threaten or disrupt the company's operations, and when we do it together in large forces. It's very, very scary for workers to take action against Amazon. It's one of the largest companies, and Amazon has and will continue to smear workers who, you know, dare to speak up. And so we know that we have to have workers take action together in large numbers. And also Amazon making that known publicly. Amazon cares about its public image. And so when we can threaten Amazon's operations and disrupt it and threaten its growth and its public image, that's when we are successful. I also agree and echo a lot of what Liana said about we need organizing in new workplaces. You know, I think a lot of people thought that it wasn't possible to organize tech workers. It wasn't possible to organize Amazon warehouses because of all the issues that Mick and Liana pointed out. But it is important, and we have to invest in new organizing and new workplaces. We have to center on racial justice because that's what the majority of workers are experiencing, racialized discrimination at the company. And I would also add, you know, if you are interested in supporting the fight, you support Amazon workers in standing up. And does your workplace, you know, work with Amazon? Does your workplace use AWS or Amazon Business? And ask questions. I'm not saying walk away. I'm saying use that power to put pressure and ask questions and make demands. So I'll stop there for now and hope to have a good conversation.
Well, thank you. And again, no surprises there. A really inspirational contribution about the activities of Amazon and how it promotes itself and the effects that it has on people that it serves in communities, but also the workforce overall. I think there's some very important questions that you've raised there. I was going to stop and just for a couple of minutes and just allow some questions. But actually, what I'm going to do, I'm enjoying listening to this conversation, and I do think we should break it up a little bit and make it a bit participatory. But actually, I'm sorry, Fatima, I'm going to ask you to come and speak and give your contribution, because actually I don't want to interrupt the flow of this. And just before Fatima speaks, I'm just going to be delighted to introduce a really good friend of mine, a really close sister in the union movement, where we've worked together for a number of years. And one of the first things that Fátima and her union did last year on some of our Amazon campaigns in the UK, they sent a delegation of workers from her union to come and stand on our demonstrations and picket lines and show some global solidarity. And for that, I'll always be forever grateful to you, Fátima. So really looking forward to what you've got to say now, please, Fátima.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Sabéis que me encanta hablar en inglés con vosotros, pero gracias por darnos la oportunidad, también para los compañeros de España que no hablan inglés, poder compartir con vosotros cómo hemos vivido esta experiencia. Seguramente a través del chat, nuestra compañera Ana, Isabel, que sabéis que forma parte de la red de Amazon, pueda explicar un poco de primera mano, podría incluso aquellas cuestiones que yo olvide. En cualquier caso, con respecto a Amazon España y cómo se ha vivido la situación del COVID, tiene que quedar claro que evidentemente los logros obtenidos en España no significa que, o no son debidos en parte a que nosotros seamos mejores que otros países a la hora de hacer sindicalismo, o que, bueno, pues nosotros tengamos un método diferente, sino que simplemente lo que contamos, en cierto sentido en este caso, es con un sistema sindical muy diferente al del modelo anglosajón. Y bueno, pues en las empresas de más de 6 trabajadores, nosotros no tenemos por qué tener afiliados dentro de las empresas, podemos directamente promover, si tenemos una lista de candidatos, elecciones sindicales, representantes sindicales en las empresas, y eso siempre es un punto a nuestro favor. Evidentemente, donde hay una buena representación sindical, de sindicatos de clase y no de sindicatos corporativos, allí es donde tenemos fuerza. De hecho, Amazon, que conoce muy bien la ley y utiliza la ley allá donde va y a los países que va. Los primeros años en España lo que hizo fue utilizar la ley para promover elecciones sindicales en la empresa en la que había sindicatos amarillos que eran de la empresa. Y pues el sindicato pudo introducirse en la misma. En ese sentido, además de esto, contamos con una ley muy importante del año 95 sobre prevención de riesgos laborales. Y es una ley, no os la voy a contar ahora, ¿no? Pero bueno, es una ley que obliga a las empresas a establecer medidas muy estrictas en torno a la salud y la seguridad en el trabajo. Y bueno, además de eso, evidentemente hay comités de salud y seguridad dentro de las empresas. Algo similar pasa también en Francia, donde los trabajadores, los representantes sindicales, tenemos delegados de prevención que se encargan, al margen del trabajo que haría un delegado normal, se encargan de denunciar todas las deficiencias que puedan existir en las empresas y que incumplan la ley. Entonces, bueno, en los días previos a la pandemia hubo reuniones entre este Comité de Seguridad y Salud, en el que, bueno, también hay representantes nombrados por la empresa y representantes nombrados y los delegados de prevención nuestros. Pues hubo reuniones en marzo, hubo varias reuniones, también hubo reuniones entre la dirección y el comité de empresa. La empresa planteaba que, bueno, que ya había mandado a sus trabajadores técnicos a trabajar, quedaban los trabajadores en planta y ellos planteaban que ya estaban siguiendo las medidas necesarias. Presentaron un informe muy bonito en el que decían, bueno, pues ahora vamos a modificar, os pongo un ejemplo, la cantina, la hora del bocadillo, pues metro de seguridad, ¿no? Y ponían a una persona, les ponían así, uno enfrente del otro, como librando espacios. Bueno, en fin, un informe que a nuestro parecer era bastante deficiente. Y bueno, nosotros y nuestra gente entendió, hablo en este caso del centro de San Fernando, pero también nos pasó en Barcelona, que en los centros grandes, como en el del Prat, que sabéis que es uno de los más importantes de Europa, no se estaban aplicando las medidas necesarias y máxime cuando pues hubo contagiados, ¿no? En el momento en el que empezó a haber varios contagiados, la empresa planteó que había puesto en marcha un sistema de trazabilidad, un sistema que a nosotros nos pareció francamente deficiente, y ante eso, pues lo que hicieron los compañeros del sector de carretera y logística, Ana, y los compañeros de la sección sindical, en este caso, tanto en Barcelona como en Madrid, fue presentar denuncia ante un organismo que existe en España, que es la Inspección de Trabajo. Claro, evidentemente, pues nosotros pedíamos que los trabajadores tenían que llevar mascarilla, entre muchísimas otras cosas, ¿no? Que se tenía que espaciar el número de trabajadores que entraban en cada turno. No podíamos tener 1000 y pico personas en un almacén logístico donde irremediablemente se iban a cruzar en los pasillos cuando tuviesen que coger determinados materiales. Los tornos que finalmente quitaron a la hora de entrar. ¿Qué decir del miedo y de la falta de medidas cuando supimos, o se supo por algunos informes, que el COVID podía permanecer en las cajas de cartón, ¿no? ¿Qué sucedía con eso? ¿Qué protocolos existían? Y bueno, pues la Inspección de Trabajo dio un plazo máximo de 48 horas a la empresa, una vez que vio el informe que habían presentado, la situación extraordinaria que se estaba viviendo en Madrid, muy similar a la de Nueva York en el número de contagiados. Y bueno, pues yo creo que ese ultimátum en el que se planteó a la empresa, tienes que cerrar, o no cerrar, tienes que implementar de manera urgente todos los cambios que te estamos exigidos por parte de la administración. Yo creo que, o creemos que Amazon en ese sentido le vio, en español se dice ver las orejas al lobo, vio y entendió que no se podía permitir que le pasase como en Francia, que le cerraran el centro, ¿no? Y en ese sentido, pues que me corrijan los compañeros si no es así, pero bueno, pues mejoró mucho todo lo que tiene que ver con la salud y seguridad de los trabajadores. Luego el gobierno, además, implementó por ley, en un real decreto, una legislación especial, el 8 de marzo del 2020, no, la ley, perdón, 8/2020, en la que planteó, pues incluso, además de otras cosas que se han aplicado en otras empresas, como los expedientes de regulación de empleo temporales que han protegido a los trabajadores, pues promovían también el derecho de flexibilidad y de reducción de jornada, ¿no? En ese sentido, como os digo, no es que nosotros seamos mejores como sindicalistas, ¿no? Sino que nuestro modelo sindical es completamente distinto. Nosotros, para tener fuerza, no necesitamos tener afiliados dentro de las empresas. Es mucho mejor si lo vamos teniendo, ¿no? Y cada vez vamos teniendo más. Y luego comentar anecdóticamente, porque esto sí es una anécdota, evidentemente en los centros donde no tenemos representación sindical y no hay representación, no sabemos lo que ha pasado. Entendemos que, bueno, existe la posibilidad de hacer denuncias anónimas a través de un buzón que han habilitado en el gobierno, a través de la inspección laboral, pero nosotros en ese sentido no tenemos, donde no estamos, no tenemos capacidad de estar o de inspeccionar como pues les puede pasar a los compañeros, a vosotros, ¿no? Pero bueno, el plantear, por ejemplo, que en uno de los centros de Barcelona, en todo momento, gracias a esa figura, por eso la importancia de exigir, gracias a esa figura de los delegados sindicales que denunciaron, oye, esto es muy importante, y del diálogo con la empresa en ese sentido, no sé si también es por una cuestión cultural, pues se implementaron medidas muy, muy exigentes para evitar cualquier tipo de contagios. Pero bueno, creemos que es más por una cuestión egoísta de la empresa, que no podía permitirse en un país como España, que estaba cerrado prácticamente, pues que no hubiese comercio electrónico, y evidentemente vieron que iban a incrementar cuantiosamente sus ganancias, algo que así ha sucedido. Pero imaginaros al principio, cuando en todo el mundo, en toda Europa y creo que también en Norteamérica hemos vivido esa falta de abastecimiento por no tener mascarillas, por no tener material de protección, ¿no? Claro, afortunadamente como los trabajadores de Amazon son muy jóvenes, pues no ha habido unas consecuencias, que no está dicho que por ser joven no puedas tener una consecuencia grave para tu salud después de sufrir un COVID, ¿no? Y en ese sentido, bueno, pues yo lo que sí que quería plantear es que ni mucho menos, o sea, que si Amazon no tiene una legislación que le obligue, Amazon no hace lo que, bueno, pues lo que le corresponde, ¿no? Y yo creo que tendremos que hacer esa reflexión de cara a más allá de lo que le exigimos a Amazon en todo el mundo, que nuestro campo de batalla es la seguridad y la salud, evidentemente, en esta empresa, pero tendremos que estar muy alerta ante posibles pandemias futuras que se vayan a producir, obligar a la empresa a que se establezcan protocolos. Y una cuestión muy importante y sobre la que sí que también llegamos a plantearnos, yo lo mencionaba también Diana en su intervención en una parte, ¿no? Y es claro, toda la cadena de subcontratación que reparte esos paquetes de Amazon sobre los que no tienes control. Y tú mencionabas XPO, pero bueno, los falsos autónomos, etcétera, ¿no? Yo lo dejo aquí para el debate y reflexión y nada, agradeceros.
Oh, wonderful. And I mean, shows what unions are trying to do country by country, but also passing on our learning experiences to help the global campaign. So thank you, Fátima, for that great address. I just want to say a couple of hellos to people. Some people have posted some notes up and say hello. So I want to say hello to my good friend Tony Burke, Assistant General Secretary of Unite. Hope you're keeping well, Tony. And I've noticed you posted a couple of questions. we'll try and answer those at the end. And also hi to Ida Clemo from G&B London region, my own union. Great to see you on here, Ida, and thank you for saying hello. Colleagues, the TUC are tweeting out, so they're taking photographs, little snippets of what's being said on here, and they're tweeting it out. So I don't know if you can see this. No, it's not coming up very well. So TUC Global at TUC Global. Could you do me a favor? Can you all retweet those messages? There's some fantastic things up there, and it'll be really good to get something trending as we go through this. Now, my next speaker, and I'm really pleased about this. In fact, we'll keep it a secret between ourselves, Christy, how long we've actually known each other. So me and Christy worked together a number of years ago on a global campaign, which was the bus workers campaign for First Group and National Express as it was then. Christy has been a phenomenal leading activist in trade unionism, not only from her own country in the US, but also globally. And Christy was elected to be the General Secretary of Uni Global. She's a real powerful force within our movement, and it's just great to have you on here, sister. So over to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mick. And I'm really thanking you for not telling the world how many years we've worked together. So, greetings, brothers and sisters, colleagues at the TUC and around the world. Great to hear the remarks that all of you made earlier. And don't have so much to add. You've really told a brilliant story. It's great to be with all of you here on this summer evening, even though we're not together in person. It's really, we're here in commitment and spirit. And I could say there's nothing I'd rather do on a Friday night than talk about Amazon, which is the ultimate organizing target. So first, I just want to recognize this GMB and the fabulous work they've been doing on Amazon here in the UK. Really providing that groundbreaking health and safety research to Amazon workers everywhere. It's been used in countries around the world. It proved how dangerous the jobs are well before COVID. And so you've done a lot about educating the public about the costs of Amazon's convenience. And also, I want to congratulate the TUC for hosting this very ambitious and timely, the whole event, not just this session. Lots of uni folks are coming on board to experience it. We're all trade unionists and we're going to get together and fight no matter what the obstacles. So it's great to have the opportunity. So when we talk about Amazon, we have to first, it's helpful to put it into this unprecedented historical moment that we're in right now, because we've learned a lot from the crisis. And the crisis has brought some acceleration in long-term trends that really will affect us for decades to come. Because I think we all recognize the fight at Amazon is not only a fight to unite the global workforce of more than 1 million workers and raise standards in these fast-growing sectors of the economy, but it certainly is that, and we must organize the workers, but it's also a fight to define how our democracies are going to regulate the tech giants that dominate our global economy. It's about ensuring our antitrust laws are fit for purpose for the 20th century. Amazon should not be allowed to control everything just because Jeff Bezos had a good idea 30 years ago. It's about organizing our communities around digital rights for workers and beating back surveillance capitalism. As Eliza said, it's about recognizing Amazon's CO2 contributions are too high. Companies like Amazon need to lead. We're talking about tax avoidance. And if there's ever been a point in time to talk about tax avoidance and the need for companies to pay their taxes, it's now as we enter into this period of incredible recession. And we need our vital public infrastructure. So Amazon's got to pay their taxes. And finally, it's about ending the obscene wealth inequality, which is represented by the unprecedented fortune of Jeff Bezos. So during this crisis, we learn, no surprise, that Amazon puts its own growth, its own power above everything else, including the health of its workers. And you've heard the stories from Fátima and Liana. And I think from speaking from Global Uni, we have a bit of a picture of all the countries together, because we've had this global alliance of unions for a number of years, I think 5 years now, from 22 countries. We can say the mistreatment, Amazon's mistreatment of workers has been in the news almost every week. And you see these big picture trends and that have rolled out pretty consistently across from country to country. And the first is, that when the stores closed in March, happened across Europe, happened in most countries of the world where Amazon operates, the online orders increased dramatically. Everybody still wanted to consume the same amount, and they thought Amazon's the only opportunity to do that. So the orders went way up. But at the same time, Amazon was supposed to be imposing social distancing in the warehouses. Well, you can't keep up with peak season orders and at the same time slow down the pace so that you can maintain health conditions. So Amazon didn't want to slow anything down. That was the last thing they wanted to do. And that's what really ultimately put people in danger. No PPEs, no transparency, all of this led to what turns out to have been a lot of infections. Now, in some countries, and you heard from Fátima, we also heard about France, there was a fight back in Italy. In some countries where unions are required, so long as you have a small level of representativity, of membership, those workers were able to fight back and win. And I think Fátima is being modest when she's saying, well, nothing special about the Spanish. They did a great job fighting back. They, worked the tools they have, and they did a great job of winning a safe environment. In France, they brought a lawsuit, and the courts ruled in their favor of the workers twice. The first time they said, you cannot sell products in this warehouse except essential goods, meaning food and medicine, until you get a deal with the union. And Amazon, rather than get a deal with the union, what did they do? They closed down the factory. They said, we'd rather just walk away. Well, that didn't last for very long. A month later, they got another similar decision from the court, and eventually they did negotiate a deal with the union after a fight, but they won. And Italy, same thing. They took 11-day strike, and eventually they won. So it's possible to win. It takes not just a fighting spirit, because I think the workers in the U.S. have a fighting spirit as well, but also a structure that enables unions to exist, to put it basically. In the U.S., where workers don't have a union, they don't yet have a union, I should say. I'm sure that with determination that will happen as well. But there were a number of wildcat strikes. There were press conferences, there were protests. So what did Amazon do? They fired the whistleblowers. They fired people who supported the organizers. 6 people were fired in retaliation. Their only offense was standing up for their colleagues and asking Amazon to do better. Now, one group of workers in the US filed a lawsuit in court in New York against the treatment during the pandemic. And Uni came in this lawsuit as an amicus, a friend of the court, along with our affiliate in New York City. And we said, look, Amazon is so anti-union, so hostile to workers anywhere in the world, everywhere in the world. The only way workers can win safe work is either to go to court, go to the labor inspectorate, or strike, where they have a right to do that. And Amazon, the first court hearing was yesterday, and I had to laugh, or the day before. Amazon said workers were trying to take advantage of the pandemic in order to win things that they didn't deserve. We were bringing this lawsuit to take advantage of Amazon. How cynical and crazy is that? So the crisis is not over. Certainly in my country, in the US, it's worsening. It's record numbers of infections every day. But nevertheless, Amazon, reckless and cruel as it is, rolled back the unpaid sick leave that it had offered before, rolled back the bonus pay that it had offered before, and some of the other measures that they offered in the first months to really get people to come to work. Amazon's warehouses in Minnesota, it's been announced that more than 80 workers were sickened with the virus, and yet Amazon really still refuses to listen to do what it would take to negotiate with workers a fair outcome at work. And you know, this fight is going to keep going on. I can say that Amazon's reputation is getting a bloody nose. They've proven themselves to be greedy beyond belief. And how do the shareholders do during this crisis? I mean, everyone else is really struggling. Combination of health crisis, racial crisis, economic crisis, but the shareholders making out like bandits. Their most famous shareholder, Jeff Bezos, Wednesday, Amazon stock hit a record high, and Bezos's wealth, $182.6 billion, the highest net worth Forbes ever recorded in its 4-decade history of tracking billionaires. So I would just say it doesn't have to be this way. We're going to organize Amazon in more ways than one. In June, we had a virtual meeting of our Uni Amazon Global Alliance, and you heard earlier about the vice president of Amazon who resigned in disgust about how Amazon had retaliated against workers who spoke out about health. He came to our alliance meeting, which is, for me, I have been a trade unionist for 40 years. I won't say I've been working with Mick for 40 years, but pretty much. And in all of my time, I can't remember a vice president resigning over the treatment of workers, let alone he came to our union meeting and he called for unionization of Amazon workers and meaningful regulatory reform, meaning we need to break up Amazon. Democratic societies need to have competition regulation to regulate their unchecked power. So I would say something's happening out there. Amazon, the sheen has worn off and it's starting to, as I said, get a few bloody noses. And people are starting to realize that, this company is not just a nice, happy place that brings nice packages to our door. It's a terrible employer. And it's greedy, and it has incredible power that it should not be allowed to wield. But, we are living in extraordinary times right now that call for new alliances, new ways of addressing our biggest challenges. We can build a post-COVID world that's more just, more sustainable, and more democratic, not without struggle. We have to use all the tools that are available. Eliza said we should look at who's using AWS. Let's look at procurement. Let's look at how we use the antitrust rules, the digital services regulation, the GDPR tools. There's a lot of things that we need to explore when it comes to keeping the heat on Amazon. But more than anything, we need to keep talking to workers and mobilizing them. We had a symposium last December in Brussels, organized jointly with the ITUC. We know we have allies around the world who are similarly concerned about Amazon's unchecked power: consumers, small business groups, tax justice campaigners, anti-monopoly organizations, climate justice, digital rights, right down the line, elected leaders. And we're going to keep working with that broader group to keep the spotlight on Amazon. It is going to take all of us working together to win this campaign. We know when we join our allies locally, nationally, globally, we can do great things that empower workers, unions, and democracy. As I said, we're at a special moment right now. We don't know what's possible, but I would say we know that big change happens in leaps and bounds, not in slow increments. We know these big opportunities for change don't come very often, so we should never think that we can't win at Amazon. We're organizing with allies right now for a global day of action on Prime Day 2020, which we think will be in October. We're not sure. And so I'd say to all of you, join us. We need to think big. We need to aim high. We need to win at Amazon, and I know we can do it. So thank you very much.
Well done, Christy. Thank you very much. I am sure that has provoked a number of responses. I can see the chat group going up, and you know, I would just invite people that, you know, now is the time, please, to ask you questions, send them in, and then we're going to put them randomly to people on the panel. And I'm going to ask the panelists, you know, if we can all jump in and answer a particular question or add something to it. What I'm going to say is, let's be a bit brief so we can answer as many questions as possible. So, have we got the first questions, Nikki, that you think could be fired in? Hello? This is one of these technical hiccups that I thought somebody was going to be collating the questions.
Hello.
Nikki?
Yep.
Do you want to fire some of the, would you like to fire some of the questions in, please?
Yep. So one of the first questions we had was from Carl Hughes, and he wants to know what kind of ways can we think about using and adapting new technologies for our own purposes in order to fight back against the oppression of workers through technology and new or repackaged forms of exploitation.
Well, I think it's a very complex question, but, you know, we've got an expert on the panel who works in this field, and I think actually it'd be really interesting to hear what Eliza's got to say on this. What do you think, Eliza?
Okay. You know, I gotta say, I'm not quite sure, other than that we have to build or use what technologies that already exist to allow workers to talk to each other. Amazon, in response to our organizing internally, they have deleted our emails, our communications to each other. And I know Mick mentioned, you know, Amazon not allowing flyers, and Amazon has also, for us internally, has been basically requiring moderation on messages, basically requiring that messages to workers be approved by somebody else before they're actually sent. So a lot of censorship going on. So I think what comes to mind is basically building ways for workers to communicate with each other outside of the workplace. I know there's, you know, Facebook groups, and I'm not sure what else might be happening, but we as tech workers are trying to figure out how do we communicate with tech workers outside of the corporate channels, because Amazon is not only watching, but actively censoring and cracking down. But I'm sure other panelists might have more to add that I'm not thinking about at the moment. So I'll see if
Christy,
anybody else has anything to add.
Yeah, Christy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, we're really trying to work on developing digital tools for organizing. Not so much in terms of using the company's own internal communications, 'cause as much as we might think we'd like to have access to that, you know, that's not around. But, you know, I think that everybody's been spending this week at the TUC organizing conference, even doing a lot of talking about getting online sign up, getting various techniques on how you reach out to workers. I think it's out there. You know, lots of workers use WhatsApp, for example, Facebook, and all the rest of it, but we need to do better. We do have, we are using a lot of technology, though, to find workers, to reach out to them, and to bring them into an organizing conversation. So, and that's probably, rather than getting in all the details, that's probably the best I can do on that one, Mick.
No, I mean, these are good responses. I mean, you know, we really do need to think more broadly and outside of the box in terms of how we can embrace the power of technology and how we can use that in an organizing sense. And I know pre-COVID, working with a few of the unions, we were looking at promoting app-based technology for organizing. But, you know, I think the pandemic has brought about a big situation where actually organisers in unions have been organising actually from home. And that has brought its challenges as well. So actually, we've developed in the last few months a generation of union organisers that are having to think about new technologies, things that are appliances that they've never used before. And actually, I think it could be a great time to harness and all that talent that's been working on a number of these things, and let's see how we can use technology to help workers. I think that was a great question. Nikki, do we have some more questions, please?
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly.
So yeah, another question we've got from the audience, from Kevin Leishman, is what particular challenges are posed by the way the company operates across borders, and how can labour organisations meet these challenges?
Yeah, Fatima, would you like to answer that question? Has it translated across okay?
¿Qué podemos hacer al respecto? Pues, a ver, lo que está claro es que, y esto es una cuestión que yo creo que he discutido muchas veces con Mick, y es organizar, y una muy importante, afiliar y afiliar. Es que no hay otro camino. Evidentemente, poner en contacto a la sociedad, pero Christy lo decía en su intervención, es que el comercio electrónico ha subido. Entonces, la sociedad no es que no esté de nuestro lado. Ante esta pandemia, por ejemplo, claro, veíamos cómo había trabajadores que nos decían, es que se están vendiendo videojuegos como nunca en la vida, ¿no? Frente a esa realidad, la sociedad la tenemos que descartar por una cuestión que creo que es la condición humana. La condición humana, el miedo, la incertidumbre, pero a nivel sindical yo creo que tenemos algo muy potente. Y otro elemento, creo que a tener en cuenta, es mi opinión, y también lo decía Christy cuando hablaba de que tienen que pagar frente a la evasión fiscal, que tienen que pagar sus impuestos, que tienen que darse cuenta de qué suponen como actores en la sociedad. Yo creo que es verdad que como sindicatos solos no podemos hacerlo. Eso es una cuestión que es indudable. Pero tendremos que comprometer a los gobiernos a que lo hagan. Porque si en algunos países está funcionando, evidentemente por el trabajo sindical, pero si funcionan en algunos países es porque en cierta manera se ven obligados. Es mi opinión, no sé si he contestado a la pregunta o he ido por...
No, you didn't go off on a tangent. I think it was a really good answer. Nikki, do we have another question, please?
Yeah, so we've got a question from Tony Beck, and I'm actually going to tack a little bit of a question onto his as well.
Okay.
So Tony's asking about, so in the UK, Amazon have started a lot of TV advertising, and it's a real charm offensive of it's a wonderful place to work and everything great. So is that something that they've done in other countries and in America in particular? And how do we combat this? And my question to add on to that is obviously part of organising against Amazon and is to get the public's buy-in as well, the consumers and the people who use their services. So how do we kind of tackle that charm offensive that they're on, and how do we get the public to buy into our aims as well?
Yeah, thanks, Tony, for a very complex question. And I've known you in the past have worked on trying to organise Amazon as well. Let's be quite frank about this. The advertising in the UK by Amazon is actually different to the advertising that's taking place in other countries. And the reason why is we have absolutely brought Amazon's reputation to a real halt in terms of it's not a safe place to work. It doesn't provide dignified work, the injuries, things like that. This is all on public record. So one of the reasons, if you look at their advertising in the UK, it's all saying it's what a safe place it is to work. Now, if it was a safe place to work, why would a company as rich as Amazon have to spend millions of pounds of money, UK sterling, to place adverts on TV to tell people it's safe to work in Amazon? That's a contradiction in itself. No company should have to go on advertising saying we are a great place to work and we are safe. You know, to me, that's not what it's about. So the advertising is slightly different. It's more nuanced here, and that is because there's been a lot of reaction to them. Leanna, I mean, can you give an answer to this from what's taking place in the US around Amazon's advertising and things like that, please?
Yeah, I think we've also seen similar, because I think initially before the massive unemployment as a result of the COVID pandemic, I think there was actually a brief moment there where there was this huge demand for online, and the labor market wasn't enough to meet that demand, and so they were trying to incentivize like people to work there. And I think what we've seen is that this employment model is sort of like a churn and burn employment model of like enticing people in to come in, but then people typically there's like a huge revolving door and high turnover rates because the working conditions are so poor and people don't stay there a long time. And so I think they're constantly like, you know, people are getting injured, people are having a bad experience, and then they're no longer working there, and they're just churning through different workers. And so I think that like sort of exposing that, and then also the organizing of former workers and keeping them involved through the community campaigns, through other things, I think is going to be important in order to like address some of that as well, so that it's like you know, because they definitely are trying, and even inside the workplaces, you know, talking about, like, for example, in the US, they just announced publicly that they're giving a $500 bonus at the same time that they took away $2 an hour hazard pay while the pandemic is still going on and COVID cases are increasing. So, you know, the $500 bonus, as they say, is like a gift, and they're trying to say, look how generous we are. But if you divide that up, it's like almost equivalent to $2 an hour. And so why is this all of a sudden a gift during the middle of a pandemic when they took it away from workers and they're only giving it to one time and for only certain workers as well? So I think just like starting to, you know, engage workers more on the real reality and what's happening is a way to crack through that.
Oh, brilliant. Christy, do you have anything to add on this as well, please, from a global perspective?
You know, I just want to say that in terms of the earlier question about cross-border solidarity, that it's important that Amazon know that we are joined up. And when something happens in France, that immediately it's known across the world. That we have that capacity to really, you know, to be joined up in a way that yeah, it would be good if we could all take action on the same day. That's what we want to do, something together on Amazon Prime Day, but everybody's in a different place. You know, everybody has different risks and different capacities to take action on, you know, at any given time. But I think the fact that we're united presents a much bigger threat to Amazon than if we were just acting alone. And the fact that we're talking to one another, and the fact that when the New York workers go into court, you know, we're in there with them, or when the French workers are, you know, taking their action, you know, we're broadcasting support for them. That gives them a lot more strength with Amazon, when Amazon knows that, you know, we're talking to their home market at New York Times or whatever, you know. So I think the media part is important. Tony made a good point about the TV ads. That I personally, when I go to the UK, I am shocked to see those ads. I 100% agree with you, Mick, that it's completely in response to your campaign to say that it's I have never seen those ads anywhere else. Well, that doesn't mean they don't exist, but I can say that I think it's a testament to the fact that you've put their safety conditions at issue among the public in the UK and really done a good job. But yeah, I think the fact that cross-border is more than all doing the same thing at exactly the same time. It's really staying in close contact, and it gives us more strength as we take on this global behemoth. I mean, you know, we're bigger than them in the end. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Nikki, do we have the next question, please?
Yeah, so this one's for Eliza, but obviously other panelists may have thoughts as well. But Blake Harwell wants to know, what leverage do you think Amazon would be able to use to address the pollution and carbon impacts that you talked about in your presentation? Is it better contracts, better logistics? Like what are the sort of proposals that we can be pressuring them to take on board?
Thanks for this question. As you all know, Amazon is one of the largest companies in the world. Its carbon emissions are more than hundreds of countries, actually. And so the size that Amazon's operations means that it can really, when it makes moves, it can really change the landscape of an industry. And so when it comes to reducing its carbon emissions, where we look for solutions are really where what communities are saying. The communities that I mentioned that are being impacted most are the communities around its warehouses, where a lot of the pollution is located. And those communities are asking for things like zero emissions vehicles, and those should be deployed in the communities that are being impacted most first. That's one of our demands, actually. Amazon did commit to purchasing 100,000 delivery vans, but those are largely marked for last mile delivery, so basically from warehouse to customers' doors. And that and Amazon's customers are predominantly more wealthy than the workers living around the warehouses. And so when we look for solutions to Amazon's decarbonization, let's look at what communities are already asking for. It's not like we don't have to come up with our own demands. People already know what they need in their communities. So asking for things like zero emissions vehicles and to be deployed first there, asking for things like noise and sound barriers and vegetation barriers for all the dust and pollution that the trucks are emitting. In California, there recently was law passed about how trucks that are sold in the state have to be zero emission by 2030, and then another milestone by 2040. And that goes for air, prime air as well. So I guess this is a little bit of a garbled answer, but I'll say first look to if communities who are experiencing the impacts of Amazon's pollution are already putting forward solutions. Let's listen to those. And then continue to hold Amazon accountable for working with the oil and gas industry, for continuing to double down on those partnerships with AWS, and to make real investments in communities of color rather than empty gestures. Amazon, in response to our shareholder resolution this past year, said that they already invest in communities of color, and when you kind of dig a level deeper, what they mean is they donated $5,000 to a local library where they built a warehouse. So holding Amazon accountable to what they say that they care, and saying, well, you need to make real investments, and the communities are already asking for those investments. Zero emissions, not net zero, complete zero emissions by 2030. And, 2030 is still 10 years away. So what are you doing right now? Because people are hurting now from the emissions. So setting that goal and also making commitments now to reduce those emissions. Communities are asking for things like air filters even. So looking at macro and micro.
Thanks for that. Any more questions here, Nikki?
Yep, so we've just had one come in from Steve Davies. So as all of the panelists sort of mentioned in their presentations, different countries have different political setups and different relationships with unions. So the question sort of centres on, have the panel got any lessons for us about the way we can get governments to help put pressure on Amazon? And I think, more broadly, what are the ways that we can leverage different actors to put pressure on Amazon?
Yep. Fátima, would you like to start to answer that question, please?
Pues aquí, evidentemente, es que el papel de los gobiernos es fundamental. Y lo uniría un poco con lo que decía Eliza del cambio climático, ¿no? Es decir, los gobiernos están comprometidos a reducir las emisiones de CO2. Luego los gobiernos tendrán que establecer normas que ayuden a mitigar o que obligan a las empresas a mitigar el cambio climático. El principal problema en Amazon va a ser la última milla. Ojo, cuidado, aquí también nos encontraremos con el problema de los riders, que ya están repartiendo con bicicletas eléctricas, etcétera, ¿no? Y el modelo de precariedad, pero ese es otro debate. Yo creo que esa es la responsabilidad, tanto a nivel mundial, como sindicato mundial y como sindicato europeo, la parte que nos toca, que tenemos. Por ejemplo, una cosa de la que quedé fascinada el año pasado cuando estuvimos en Inglaterra con los compañeros de G&B, fue conocer bien toda esa campaña que habían llevado a cabo con el tema de las ambulancias, de poner en valor los servicios públicos y cómo estas empresas se aprovechan de los servicios públicos. Eso, por ejemplo, ese tipo de ideas son extrapolables nos parece que son extrapolables en un momento en el que hay tanta conciencia sobre el papel tan importante que juegan los servicios públicos y que hemos visto en una crisis como esta. Y cómo este tipo de empresas no pueden comerse nuestros servicios públicos por sus propios intereses. No pueden mandar a unos trabajadores al médico normal si están enfermos, tienen que mandarles a la mutua. Todo este tipo de cuestiones creo que dentro de la gravedad de la crisis en la que vamos a estar englobados, tienen que ser para nosotros oportunidades, ¿no? Que evaluemos como oportunidades para atacar a un gigante como Amazon. No sé cómo lo veis el resto.
Thank you. Christy, I'm going to make this the last question, actually, because we have to finish shortly. So, Christy, if you could just answer this one, please, if you wouldn't mind as well.
I mean, I think there's loads of things. I like what Fátima said on climate. I think on the other pieces, there's a lot that governments can do, apart from changing the way that the labor laws work so that to make it easier to organize for workers, but just in terms of keeping pressure on Amazon. The EU has already taken some big steps, important. I don't want to say too big, but, towards looking at Amazon and their antitrust, their power over all the people who sell on the platforms and the whole range of power that they have and causing the antitrust issue is something governments can take on. The US government is looking at it in a serious way. It won't change until we have a new president, but I think that's the one big thing that Amazon is really afraid of, is losing some of that profit that they earn from their cloud business to finance all their loss-making businesses in Europe. Because remember, all the Amazon warehouses across Europe, they're operating at a loss. They don't have to compete in the normal way that our regular grocery stores do, or our regular, shops do. So antitrust is a big one. That's at the EU level, that's an issue, but also at the national level. But what our cities can do on last mile delivery, that's a huge amount of pressure, that ability they have to regulate that, and I know the mayor of Paris is thinking about putting a lid on it so that you don't have so many, trucks in the streets at all times competing with one another to deliver a single Amazon package. Digital taxes, they should pay taxes on their revenues that they earn, not just on their profits. So they're getting away with murder, not paying their taxes. There's a long laundry list of ways that governments can really get into the Amazon, get into their hair. So I think we're really, we've spoken out a lot on digital taxes, on antitrust issues. The idea is not that we can't have Amazon. Yes, we like e-commerce, it serves a function, but the idea is that they shouldn't run every industry in the world at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that was a really good point to finish on here, everybody. I'm really sorry that we can't answer some of the other questions because we're really up against the time now. But may I thank Eliza, Liana, thank you, because I know it's a different time zone where you guys are, so thank you very much. Christy, as always, wonderful to see you. And Fatima, always wonderful to see you too. And, what an amazing experience. I am surrounded by Amazon women organisers. And, Jeff Bezos, you've got a problem with that. You've got a real problem with that, because you just look at the caliber and the quality of people that have spoken so passionately tonight, and they're inspiring tens of thousands of Amazon workers in their countries and around the world. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody for your attendance. Thank you to the TUC. Thank you, Nikki, behind the scenes, and other people at the TUC for putting this fantastic event together. And of course, our great friend and sister, Mariella, who sort of came up with this idea. I hope you've really all enjoyed it. Please do keep in touch, and do